At the beginning of the season, it was feared that we were going to simply see Red Bull run away with both championships with a superior car, an inevitability that most, including ourselves, seemed somewhat resigned to. Another year of insisting to family and friends that 24 weekends of the year aren't wasted, because there's more to Formula 1 than just the top step of the podium. Another year of toxic spectators on Twitter shilling their rage bait posts about washed drivers, L takes, and brain dead thing I like good, thing you like bad arguments. Well, that was until Ferrari and McLaren decided to close the gap on Red Bull, creating legitimate intrigue in qualifying and leading to races where Max seems to be unable to just disappear down the road in the way he used to. For the time being anyway, it seems that we now have a top 3 again, rather than just a top 1. And our main focus today, Ferrari, is certainly making threats to move upwards in the standings. Now clearly Max is still Max, and even if you remove the rocket ship capabilities of the car under him, he proved this weekend to be the difference between a Norris double and securing Red Bull yet another win. But he certainly seems far more reachable than before, something which Ferrari will be looking to capitalize on. That would be if they weren't as consistent as a bag of Mackey's fries, one week scorching hot and perfectly seasoned, and the next a damp and miserable mess. So just what is it that Ferrari need to get their heads around? Because as of right now it seems, despite their current standing, that nobody in the team is particularly happy with the way that things are going. Want to know why Ferrari can't seem to get it quite right at the moment? Their rivals of recent years are the weakest they've been in quite some time, and yet someone else might pose the greatest threat to usurping the throne instead. And stick around, because Fred Vasseur gave an insight as to just how much of a dichotomy he is currently dealing with at Ferrari. The Ferrari drivers came away with one overwhelming feeling following their first home race of the season, and that was frustration. The tightness at the top of the field, where a couple of tenths can make all the difference on Saturday, and a minute-to-minute decision can cripple a promising Sunday, seems to be taking a toll on Ferrari at the moment, with promising glimpses of pace and a real sense of improvement early in the weekend being undone by minutiae that was better capitalized on by their rivals. Charles Leclerc indicated that this was his main point of frustration, with him realizing that both McLaren and Red Bull seemed to have figured something out that gave the teams a shared advantage. Looking back at yesterday, reanalyzing qualifying, I think we basically lost everything at the launch of the lap for some reason. We had a slightly different power strategy compared to McLaren and Red Bull, and we lost everything on the run down to turn 2. Max, on top of that, had the slipstream. This is something we'll have to look into because, especially on a track like this, track position is absolutely everything. When you only have a tenth in between Red Bull, McLaren and ourselves, we need to do everything perfect, and the third place today cost us maybe a better result in the race. His bemusement was clear following the race, with his claims of McLaren and Red Bull doing something weird with their engine energy-wise being realized all too late, despite it seemingly being alluded to as the thing that gave their cars an advantage over the Ferrari on Saturday as well as the race, as Charles just said. Leclerc's frustration was doubled down on with a similar statement after the race on Sunday, meaning that despite the issue being somewhat understood, it wasn't properly acted on by Ferrari in enough of the time, though that could be down to Parc Fermé rulings. Carlos Sainz also made his frustrations clear, with the Spanish driver not happy with the weekend overall. However, both he and Charles Leclerc made sure to emphasize the confidence that they have in the upgrades that the team provided. It seems that the drivers both felt that the disappointing result from the weekend was exaggerated due to the nature of the track, with Charles claiming that the data indicated that the upgrades did exactly what the team expected them to do, and the nature of the track is what caused the efficacy of the upgrades not to truly be shown in the results, specifically the curbs and the difficult to pass tightness of the circuit. Sainz would say that he felt that he was lacking pace in general at Imola, but only as far as him not being able to move forward in the field, and would mention a slight issue with the car that may have thrown off his weekend. The frustration felt by both drivers is understandable, as it seems that Ferrari is so close and yet so far away from their nearest rivals, and consistently being one step behind over the past few weeks seems to be piling on the frustration to an even greater extent. And it's not only the drivers too, as Fred Vasseur shared in his drivers' frustrations following the race, as he believed that a better Saturday would have changed things entirely. Overall, it's kind of a mixed feeling for me because I think we did a great step forward. McLaren probably did the same as us. We compensate, I think, partly the delta with Red Bull, and we are not so far away now. I'm a bit frustrated because I think that if we did a 1-2 in quali, we would do in the race today. If we missed something, it was in quali and not in the race. Despite his frustration, Vasseur realizes that the tightness at the top of the field is a good thing for the sport in general, despite it being a source of his woes. It's good news for me, good news for F1, good news for the championship. You have 3 teams within 7 seconds after 63 laps, which is less than 1/10 a lap. It was almost the same from the beginning of the weekend. I think that the competition will be everywhere. The setup in the car will be crucial next week in Monaco. The performance of the driver will be crucial. What is true is that we are now at the point where we will have to speed up the development. Imagine that someone could bring an upgrade one race before when you have 3 teams within 1/10. You can jump from P5 to P1. It means that we will have to speed up the time to market. The upgrades certainly do look to be the all-important factor, which is an exciting realization this early into the season. Vasseur would highlight that this time last year, Aston Martin had a 100-point lead over Ferrari and would ultimately finish 100 points behind the Scuderia, leading to the hope that this season may yet be competitive and that we may actually have a title fight on our hands down the line, despite our early season fears of another Red Bull-dominated year. The key thing for Vasseur now is to maintain a sense of stability at the team despite the changing landscape as the season progresses. Stability in Ferrari hasn't always been something we'd put together since the early 2000s. The team seems to rely more on bursts of passion and opportunism, perhaps best exemplified by having arguably the best one-lap driver on the grid, rather than a consistent game plan that proves successful over a prolonged period. This is something that Fred Vasseur has been looking to tweak, applying more of a pragmatism than was previously seen at Ferrari in an attempt to reduce the trackside blunders and on-track head loss that has led to many opportunities slipping over the past decade. Clearly, having a car that isn't over half a second away is helping Ferrari in their pursuit of Red Bull. However, if the Scuderia are going to fight at the front for a whole season, they're going to need more than just a fast car. This is why the adoption of personnel from the likes of Mercedes, the benching of race engineers, and a complete overhaul of the team's attitude has been at the forefront of Fred Vasseur's approach to steadying the Ferrari ship. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's removing the passion entirely, as he realizes it may be the key asset that makes the difference between a strong day or an embarrassing day, something highlighted by Vasseur's recent interview with motorsport.com. Sometimes for 1 or 2 tenths, you can move from P3 to P8. It means that if you left something on the table, you are dead. So I think with the experience of this approach, you are more in control if you are always trying to be at the limit. And you can improve the management of the delta because then you are on it every single weekend, every single session. If you take margin, you are safe and you don't improve. So risk-taking is the direction we have to take as a team collectively. I'm the first one to push. And by the way, I'm the first one to accept that we can do mistakes. And he would also double down on the fact that at the end of the day, speed is speed, and while of course more will be needed in order to consistently achieve the optimum result from a weekend, having speed has historically been a pretty good first step towards achieving that. I think it's much easier to have a good strategy when the pace is there, and when you don't have the pace, it doesn't matter about the strategy, it's always the wrong one. The fact that we are more performant into the race, it's helping us to have a good strategy, or very good strategy from the beginning of the season. Vasseur is clearly the perfect man for Ferrari, both in his shared frustrations with his drivers and underlying passion hidden behind a stolid demeanor, as well as his pragmatic approach, which may serve as the sharpening element at the spearhead of Ferrari's approach. He may yet be the difference between Ferrari falling behind and Ferrari keeping pace with McLaren as they close in on Red Bull. However, for the time being, for the second weekend in a row, Ferrari has come out third best. Here's hoping Monaco can see McLaren and Ferrari duke it out in yet another storied chapter of the oldest rivalry on the grid.